So we'll start with today. We did first class on federalism, second on judiciary, and today we'll do parliament. So the main idea is to discuss various dimensions in which you can get questions. Make sure that this 1 hour, 1.5 hours, you have more content, more value addition that you have, and few of the light topics we'll discuss so that you can be more thorough about it, and we'll pick up a PYQ and we can discuss for that as well. But again, this I'm expecting that it would be thorough because since you have appeared for prelims, so it would be thorough for the basic and nuances of parliament and all. So I'll not discuss from prelims perspective, but from mains perspective and how you can add value addition at different places. So first, let's see, when we're talking about parliament, what are the different themes that comes to your mind? That will broaden your ideas when you're attempting any question of parliament key. From those angles, you can analyze. So in parliament, what are the things that you can, like, what are the themes around parliament? Yes, well, why parliamentary form of government? This is a form of government. So why did India choose parliamentary form of government, and does comparison presidential form of government? Yes. So things like that, like we had taken a British form or American form, so on and so forth. Like, but mostly it's a British form. We took things from Government of India Act 1935 and things before that as well. Apart from that, what about Parliament? But like, this is not one theme, right? Like, these are telling one function of Parliament. I'm telling you what are the topics around Parliament. Topics could be anti-defection is one of the topics of Parliament, right? Similarly. Yes, that to elections could be, but that's most of an election topic, not a Parliament topic. So what next? Like any topic will have issues with Parliament, right? So issues with Parliament itself, one broader topic that you can always prepare. Then you have things like parliamentary privileges. Then you have parliamentary committees. You have everything around money bills. You have parliament and its productivity, it's like the procedures and everything. You have speaker or deputy speaker, like basically the presiding officers. They constitute one of the topics as well. Apart from that, we have Rajya Sabha or the or legislative council. It's called state contemporaries. That becomes one of the topics that becomes important for parliament. Next, what becomes important is parliamentary sovereignty becomes one of the core concepts in parliament as well. So and anti-defection we just mentioned. So more or less, these are various areas of parliament that you have to follow. And the notes in the smash notes as well, we have tried to devise that into these themes. The best way to go through these notes, which might feel bulky at first, but what you can do is just take out these value addition materials and the points and the examples, the quotes, the articles, and court judgments. Keep that at one place, and that is what I've tried to do also. Put that as one place and so that it's easier for revision. But I personally would advise you to make smaller notes. Like this entire thing could be compressed into 2 pages. So if you make your own micro notes for everything, that becomes essential for revision, last minute revision, which is very essential. But you can go through the material once and twice and then make your notes so that you will put the notes which you think are necessary for revision and you will not be able to internalize. So that should be your idea of making notes now when you're appearing mains in next 2.5 months. In parliament, like if there is a question in parliament, like parliament irregularities or suspension of MPs, things like that. So you want to contextualize parliament there. You can always always write Article 79, which talks about parliament. Then we have 80, which talks about 80 is for Rajya Sabha. Yes. Did we erase it? Oh, नीचे आ गया क्या? Or I'll write it again. No problem. So we had 79 for Parliament, 80 for Rajya Sabha, and 81 for Lok Sabha. So these three articles should be like internalized in memory. Ki Parliament dikhti, you write that in bracket 79. So this how you attack the psyche of the examiner. Ki you are telling him ki I know polity. So overuse articles and court judgments in anywhere you can. And again, this is part 5 of Indian Constitution. Two more articles which becomes important is 93 for speaker, and one is 105 which is parliamentary privileges. So these, like there are a couple of other, like for president and all you can have like different articles, but for parliament these become essential to remember. And there are what other two, apart from what I have discussed, the Representation of People Act also becomes necessary. That's for both parliament and election point of view. Go in detail for RPA, for provision wise, because you have a separate topic for this that you have. And keep a generalized quote ready for parliament. There's a quote by Lal Bahadur Shastri where he calls parliament as a temple of democracy and the people of India as the high priest. So whenever you are like if there's a question in speaker or there's a question in parliamentary committee, there's a question in anti-defection, you can always quote that as the spirits of parliamentary ethos as told by Lal Bahadur Shastri in the quote, this should be maintained by impartiality of speaker, or where anti-defection serves its purpose. But you just do not write a generalized statement, but this is a very versatile quote. So keep these versatile quotes ready for all of these topics. And it's better if you can have quotes which are contemporary from the present Prime Minister, present Home Minister, present External Affairs Minister. Then you are basically telling that you are showing what is the government ideals. You are saying that my thoughts are also aligning with that. But that's not, you have to do it like consciously, but then you are presenting the government ideals also in paper through their quotes, which becomes helpful content-wise. So that you can keep in mind. As discussed, very basics, I'll not go again, but you can see in the material there will be difference between parliamentary and presidential form of government, which becomes essential. Points ek do brainstorm kar lo taki that remains in mind. Last time we had a question on parliamentary committees, but they had a question, first part of the question was explain the structure of parliamentary committees. So ye static part is also important. Last to last they had given give the structure of, I think, Advocate General or Attorney General, they had given a question. So this thing that you would have read for prelims, that ek bar just overlook wo jo static part ko as well, so that you do not miss out on these very obvious questions. But we'll talk about parliament sovereignty, as we discussed a couple of minutes back, that this is important. Parliamentary sovereignty. First of all, do we have parliamentary sovereignty? Does India have? What type of sovereignty do we have? Yes, constitutional sovereignty. If we say more than parliamentary sovereignty, unlike the Britain model, we have constitutional sovereignty. But no, it's not completely sovereign, because the judiciary can always declare any of these laws as void. Judicial review Article 13. इसीलिए constitutional sovereignty is more ideal for India's case, unlike Britain case where parliament is sacrosanct. But when you're talking about parliamentary sovereignty, keep all the articles ready at one go. Tell me what are the articles for that manifest parliament sovereignty. We just discussed now. Article 13. Which talks about judicial review. The famous court cases, IRCLO. And there are a lot of couple of them as well, but this is a very classic for judicial review, where it said that everything that you put in 9th schedule, it's not that they are immune from judicial review. Those can be also encountered through judicial review as well. What other things talks about parliamentary sovereignty? When we talk about parliamentary sovereignty, it is also not only with respect to judiciary, but also with respect to everything else, with respect to other organs of government, with respect to state legislatures as well. So people used to think parliament sovereignty as something either superior to judiciary, but if you're saying parliamentary sovereignty is basically you're saying parliament is superior to everything else. So judiciary is one of the important dimensions, but other dimensions will include the state legislatures. That parliament is even more sacrosanct more superior as to them as well. So for that, couple of articles, 245, very core article, which tells that parliament can make laws for either part or the entire country. So that basically, like for example, things would have come ki explain constitutionally mandated parliamentary sovereignty. So you don't write Article 245 as a point. You write that extent of legislation as a point. Like this could be the first point. And then you write this as a substantial to the answer. Do not write Article 245 as the main subheading of the point. Right. Same here. You could have write judicial review. Then we have 246. 246 talks about the 7th schedule sharing of lists for union list or concurrent list or state list. But you have that in concurrent list, the center has a higher power. You can show a lot of court judgments for that as well. Then we have 248, which talks about residuary powers, where in American, the states have the power to legislate over residuary subjects, but in India, Parliament has that. So that's why it has a more sovereignty in this case. Next, you write, as compared to state legislature, in state subjects also, the Parliament can make laws. Yes. So there are like 5 places where they can do. One is a 249 when Rajya Sabha requests. Then we have 250 when there is a national emergency, which is under 352. Then we have 252, which is when 2 or greater than 2 states request. Then we have 253, which is for international agreements. And another one we had, one more we had, Rajya Sabha, national, and then we have 254, which is for precedent rule, which is under Article 356. So, so that is also, if you can take about the fiscal federalism, it has, but I'm saying parliamentary sovereignty is not when we are making laws. So grants in aid, all those you can say, we have a asymmetric form of federalism. There, these examples become essential, grants in aid, centrally sponsored schemes and everything. But this is not about parliamentary sovereignty. Parliamentary sovereignty is basically the power of making legislations and being superior in that case with respect to judiciary, with respect to other forms of power centers as well. So parliamentary sovereignty is not apt for that case. Yes, Article 368 as well. The amendments and everything. That also is the next point, is when they can amend it. And in a lot of cases, they do not require the states assent, the provisions of 50% of the legislation should assent. That's on a very minor number of cases. So that's also one of the ways in which you can say Parliament there's a parliamentary sovereignty. But what are the ways in which you say that parliamentary sovereignty is not complete and we have a constitutional sovereignty? On what basis? Yeah, 13. And what else? Yes, so that's basically the same case on the Bharati case and judicial review and everything. So, yes, so limitations of the parliament. So yes, so first year judicial review, you can give that, present it in a way that, like as said in Kesavananda Bharati case, the parliament can alter the fundamental rights. And then to show that it is not complete, then you can show that even though they can do that, they cannot alter the basic feature. So you can mold your point as compared to how it is being asked. The first, that there's a judicial review, null and void by the judicial. Second, it's a written constitution. So unlike the Britain's model, there's a proper system and structure in which the parliament has to function. Second, third, amendments is also one of the ways, because there are where the federalism is being at stake, 50% assent of the legislature has to be taken. So themes remains the same. The way the perspective in which you analyze it becomes necessary where you see. Then we have always analyze the polity questions from different angles, either from these principles. Principle could be federalism, separation of powers, or justice, equality and all, or through institutions, governor, president and all, or through practices like elections, anti-defection, appointment, through that. So here, when you're talking about parliamentary sovereignty's limitation, you can have a point through an institution of president. President has veto power. So these are the frameworks in which you can always extrapolate points. So since president has a power to discard any of the laws as well and return it, so that's also is a limitation to that. Then again, we have the bicameral legislature, so where we have representation of states. So that is also one of the limitations of parliamentary sovereignty. Another one is two important articles, 121 and 211, which in respect to the judges, like the conduct and the judicial proceedings cannot be discussed in the parliament. 121 for the parliament and 211 for the state legislatures. So these are all the the limitations on parliamentary sovereignty that makes India more like a constitutional sovereignty, not like a parliamentary sovereignty. And if you would have gotten a question, you could have just concluded with what Lal Bahadur Shastri had said about temple of democracy, the parliament being one of the temple of democracy. So easy conclusion. So prepare your introduction and conclusions ready. The introduction could have been just mention of Article 79 or so, things like that. Now I'll talk about general issues with parliament. So everything that at the first minute that we discussed, what are the themes that you can think about parliament? Every theme would have an issue. So when you will have an issue that parliament is not living up to the expectations of constitutional ideals, let's say, then you imagine it from not just the functioning of parliament, but everything that is associated with parliament as well. That we discussed in the very first minute. When I'm talking about parliament, what are the things that you can think about? So, but we'll go with the basic ones, like in terms of the general functioning. The first is the productivity. Or attendance. So in 2021, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha had a decline in their general attendance. Lok Sabha was at 71% and Rajya Sabha was 74%, which was a decline as compared to the previous sessions. In 1950s and 60s, we had around effectively 120, 130 days of parliament sessions happening in a year. Now that has reduced to around 60, 70 days. Next, if you see this number of, like in the productivity one, if you see the disruptions in 2024 budget, the interim budget, around 70% of the time in Rajya Sabha during that budget session went on disruption. So that declines the entire productivity. So this becomes the first point. Next, we talked about parliamentary committees, right? One of the themes. So we talk about how referral to parliamentary committees have decreased. So have a, like for polity, the scope of making a graph is very less, but in some areas you can have to like just get that brownie points. So if you see from 14th, then the recent election is which like Lok Sabha 18th, right? So we have the data for 17th till 17th, the productivity one. So percentage of bills which were sent to committees. So we had around 60%, then which rose to 71%, but in the last two sessions, it has dropped like a lot to 27% to 13%. So if you would have gotten a question on committees as well, then you could have shown how their utility has decreased as well here. Similarly, some similar graph you can draw, for example, when talking about criminalization of politics. If you see across the years in last 3 for the number of MPs with a criminal cases, that is also on rise. Then we have representation. Yeah, that is required, but now we have 14%. There is a drop from 78 women MPs to 74 MPs. But when you're writing a fact like this, always think that 14% might make India the best, right? We do not live in an ideal world, but unfortunately the world average is around 22.4%. And in state assembly, the representation is even less than 10%. With states probably like Mizoram do not have a women legislator at all. So that's also one of the issues that we have. The fourth is ordinance. Ordinance is basically when the parliament is not in session and the council of ministers and the cabinet are making the laws, and which has to be passed. But basically there's no debates and discussions. And there have been court judgments for this as well, right? So DC Wadhwa case and everybody where exactly, it cannot be a parallel form of making laws. So that's also one of the issues. Then we have talked about parliamentary privileges, right? Which is 105 for the parliament and 194 for the states. So there's lack of codification. We don't see all of these parliamentary privileges to be, their definition and everything to be codified, as has been done by Australia and New Zealand. Australia did it in 1980s and early, like 2014 or so, New Zealand did it. So that's also best case. Like when you're writing something like this, and you can always write, but Australia did in this and New Zealand this. So ensure you have a value addition material in all of these points. Next, we have criminalization of politics. According to Association of Democratic Rights, 46% of MPs have criminal cases and 31% of them have like serious charges. And if you see, there's a progressive percentage if overally across the years as well. Next thing, what we are forgetting, what we had discussed in the first very minute, What are the different ways, themes around Parliament? Yes. So anti-defection becomes the next point. So the issues around anti-defection can just mention in one point. So that's also one of the dimensions for anti-defection. Then we have executive dominance, which is basically a gentler way of saying that lack of very strong opposition. Next, we can have a parliamentary committees. Parliamentary committees, one to be discussed about ki how number of referral is less, but second we can say ki how the number of meetings, their representation, their recommendations are not binding. So all these are also issues in the working of the parliamentary committees. Yes, post facto working. Yeah. So you can have that, like, right, the amount of time in which the debates and discussions are happening. Examples you can give: the Jammu and Kashmir, the reorganization bill and the women reservation bill that was discussed within for less than 2 weeks. There are even ones which were discussed within a day. So you can say effective amount of debates and discussion had also reduced. So that you can give. Do not pinpoint on a particular instance when 0 hour was discarded in something. But in general, give examples where the quantity of debates and discussions has been on decline. Yes, yes. But whenever you're writing an institution, it's a 10-marker question also. Give a way forward. Like if it's a 15-marker, make a separate space for like the suggestions. But if it's a 10-mark also, at least write 2 points, like how we can do it, or mention the committees as well. And for parliamentary reforms, the major committee is the Venkatachalya Committee, the National Committee for Working of the Constitution. So it has separately, if you've seen the notes also, the last page is for that. But especially for Parliament, they have said that for Lok Sabha, mandatorily 120 days and Rajya Sabha, 100 days has to be done. Either issues, they only take the recommendation ki codification of parliamentary privileges, more tools to parliamentary committees, making it like a rule so that all the bills has to go to the parliamentary committees, which is seen in UK. Except for the money bills, all the bills go to the parliamentary committees, which is absent in India. You can also bring in a lot of things that I have read in prelims here. Like when I said, right, ki committees referral is less. So there you can add in terms like the kangaroo legislation, guillotine legislation, substantive legislation, where we see that everything is not discussed, basically, I'm saying. So put in those terms that you would have read, which are like very political terms or polity-related terms, to enrich your answers. We'll talk about anti-defection because that has been in news and has been a recurring theme also. Anti-defection means, like, the next thing it has to come to your mind is 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, 1985. And we had what schedule was introduced? 10th schedule. And then again we had 91st Constitutional Amendment Act in 2003. This is the basics of anti-defection which has to be done. Again, there are 3 things that I have to discuss for any polity topic. What are the issues? What are the way forward for this? And the third one is value addition material, court judgments and articles for that as well. So for also few phrases here you can always have, like for anti-defection, it's basically there's a term Ayaram Gayaram. There is a particular anecdote why it's a very interesting story, but we'll not delve into that. But you can always put it in an introduction conclusion to like put this very popular phrases as well. And another one one dimension of anti-defection could be the significance of it. What is the significance of anti-defection? Why was it brought out? Like, first, it's political stability. Second, party discipline is there. And three, to prevent the hot states and everything, Ram Gaya Ram things, that is there. The fourth is also, if you see, anti-defection indirectly gave a constitutional recognition to political parties. Otherwise, there's nowhere about political parties, any particular article talks about that. But since through anti-defection, we're talking about shifting from one political party to another, indirectly political parties have been given a constitutional recognition through anti-defection as well. And if we talk about the issues of anti-defection, what comes to your mind? Yes. So with respect to speaker, a couple of things. One is, we do not know whether speaker has a non-partition role in deciding that or not. The second, there is no time frame given for the speaker. And the third is also, you can give that it is also subject to judicial review, which was given in Kyoto Holohan cases, and also Kame Singh versus Speaker of Manipur case. These are the two important cases regarding anti-defection. What else?
When we start the introduction would be the previous or some quotation.
No, like for something which there is already a constitutional amendment and there's a schedule, it's better to start with that. And you can always...
We can start with the second constitutional amendment or 10th schedule, the good introduction. But as per your understanding, like what do the best phrases or...
If there's a question anti-defection, it's always better to give this 10th schedule, 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1985. And then when you're shifting and writing the actual body, then you can say this was devised to ensure the idea of Ram Gaya Ram does not get repeated. And then like insert these nuances here so that it attacks the psyche of the examiner and you get those brownie points, half marks. Yeah. Anywhere you write. So this is not extremely essential. This is not indispensable. This is indispensable. This makes your question polity. This is something they're doing an add-on. So, but it is because the competition is now so tougher, you can have these small nuances, small masala to make it more richer, is what I'm saying. But this is non-negotiable. You have to get articles, constitutional amendment, a schedule, everything. That's you have to be thorough. Issues we talk about, everything was speaker. And second, yes, yeah. What is lack of coordination? So, well, that's the part key. It's not nothing is about coordination here. But here what happens is that dissent gets suppressed, where the party members cannot voice their own opinions, and that they have to basically reduce down to an agent of the party. Then there's, like, if you see 91st Constitutional Amendment Act basically said that splits will not be tolerated. Split is basically when 1/3 of a political, like the elected members change their parties, then that's split. And that would be considered as a defection and they will be penalized if they do so. But in case if it's more than 2/3, which is called merger, then this won't be applied. So according to 91st Constitutional Amendment Act, splits are not allowed, but mergers are allowed. So that also defeats the purpose. So that's also one of the issues. Another issue is that if you see independent bodies versus the nominated members who are elected, the independent ones can change the party anytime and they won't be penalized. But the nominated one have to do it within the 6 months. And if they're doing after the 6 months, then they will be penalized. So that's a discrimination between nominated and independent one.
from this party can go to the other party if one or two members of the particular political party, that is not applicable to them also.
It is. It is. If it's only more than 2/3 people of that political party, like from, let's say there's a political party A and B, and if more than 2/3 of the elected people of A joins B, then they won't be, that will be called as a merger, and then they will be not penalized. But if anything, like 1/3 was called as split, and but now according to this, that will also not be like unseen, and they will be penalized. And there's another one of the issues here is also about the ambiguities. When there is a merger of the elected people, does that mean it's also about merger of a political party, which was seen in Maharashtra case as well, where we had a lot of debates about Shiv Sena during Shiv Sena. So when the members are doing a merger, does it also mean the political party is also merging? There's a legal vacuum. You can put a phrase legal vacuum here. There's a lot of ambiguities during that because we do not have a lot of precedent for this as well. So this is also one of the issues for anti-defection. Yeah, coalition is when different political parties are coming together to form government. But merger is basically if I'm from party A and there's a party B, does not matter, B, C, D would have made as a coalition government, but there's a party A or party C also, which is a part of the coalition. But if I change my party to party B, and if 2/3 of the elected members of Lok Sabha or state legislature change their party, then that would be called merger. But there is a legal vacuum where we do not know if this merger of elected representatives also infer that the political parties in general has merged or not. Because political parties, everybody who are not like elected also, right? And few of those parties would be elected. So elected representatives merging might not mean or might mean political party merging also. So that's also an ambiguity there. And the judgments, two judgments here becomes important. The Kyoto Holohan case, where it tells about judicial review, and the Kem Singh versus Speaker of Manipur, where it says that time frame and everything has to be given quite importance. Then there are, you can always, a very contentious issue, always keep in mind any best cases where we have different models in different countries. So one, in Singapore, the parliament itself decides whether somebody should be penalized or not for anti-defection. Then in Bangladesh, there is a neutral body who decides this. And Dinesh Goswami committee has recommended that either the president or the governor decides this based on the recommendation of Election Commission of India. So these are all the three things that you can keep in mind where we have alternate ideas about this. So for next 2.5 months, keep these in framework: issues, significance, way forward, court judgments, and if any best cases possible, case studies. Like here I just talked about Bangladesh and Singapore, and a committee recommendation. And in polity, you'll get abundant committee. And the beauty of polity is recommendations are like, there are specific committees for specific things where they would have talked about a lot of things. Like Venkatachala talks a lot about parliament. Punchi and Sarkaria talks a lot about federalism and all. Second ERC has literally talked about everything. So it becomes convenient to quote them, just drop their names if you do not know the exact recommendation. But it's wise to add that what exactly they have recommended, and instead of just mentioning their names. The next what becomes important that usually we do not read a lot is parliamentary privileges. So from your polity, wherever you would have read it, assuming from Lakshmikant for prelims, what can you recall about parliamentary privileges?
So, like these privileges from one is constitution, then we have elections, then we have the procedures,
Rules, yeah. Yes. So basically, it talks about their immunities and their privileges. And What are the immunities and privileges? Yes. So, like, you could be given a direct question, give the types of privileges and how justified they are, and do we require a codification of the same? So, one we have individual and we have collective. What under individual and what under collective? Could you recall few of the individual privileges?
Individuals, first is the privilege, like against arrest, 40 days.
Yeah. So 40 days before the parliament session and 40 days after the parliament session, throughout this, the member cannot be arrested except in two cases, whether when it's a criminal case or when it's a preventive detention case, then this does not apply. But for rest of the cases, civil case and everything, this applies. What else? Yeah, freedom of speech.
Right.
Yes. Yes, their opinions and their votes that cannot be like taken in judgment on that.
Reproduced.
Yes. To courts. What else? There is also another point that so nobody can be arrested within the precincts, within the premises, be it a member or not a member, without the permission of the presiding officer. Also, another one, now we don't have jury services, but they can have exemption from jury services as well. If we talk about collective, like they can punish, right? Like contempt they have. Yes, that's one of the points. But that's not the privilege, right? That's not their immunity. Whether that is rather a compulsion on them that they have to be responsible. Privilege is something that they are.
They speak on the same line
But that's not a privilege. That's a compulsion that they have to speak on the same lines of the party. Here, privilege, a collective privilege could be by the virtue of being a member of the parliament, irrespective of their parties, they are getting one privilege out of that. So I think this could be one of the parliamentary privileges here. No, this could be individual. No, this would be individual because arrest is an individual thing, not a group.
But it can be some of them, nobody can arrest with the reminders of the.
Yeah, but the point is not whether it's individual priority, but it's an individual one. The arrest one will be individual perspective. The like punitive is one. When you have a contempt to them, they can breach of privileges.
Nothing to be published.
Yes. Second one is about publishing, but this was till there till 44th Amendment 1978. But this said that the parliamentary proceedings can be published. But since there's a grey area, so there could be cases where the parliamentary privileges could be invoked and the media and the censorship could be there. But by this Amendment Act, the media and everything is free to impartially publish the parliamentary proceeding. Yes. And then important is power to inquiry. Power to inquiry is basically get the information about any detention or arrest or things like that. There could be also one of the yes. So strangers could be excluded. So that's also one of the privileges that they can have. So in Parliament, there are other people who can also see. It's not a closed meeting always, but they can have this privilege where, with the permission of the presiding officer, they can keep that parliamentary session completely. There's no recordings. There would be no outside strangers. Would be public can be invited or be present. So that's also one of the collective privileges that they have. But couple of things is that for the privileges, three court judgments become essential. One is a very old 1959 Searchlight case, where it said that the judiciary advocated that the parliamentary privileges should not hunker the freedom of press. So press has these essential freedom right, like the fundamental right. So just because you have collective privileges, it cannot restrict the freedom of press. So here, for the first time, the fundamental rights and the privileges were in clash. The second was a K. Ajit versus State of Kerala case, where it said that even though the members have privileges and immunities, that does not mean that they can get away with the laws, which is common to all general. So do not think it this way, that these people are also law-abiding citizens and they cannot be treated something else. So the having privileges does not mean that the general laws are not applicable to you. And the very famous one, Sita Soren case, was where earlier there was a case for this. There was a PV Narasimha versus Union of India case, where because of the parliamentary privileges, a lot of investigations were restricted. But in this recent Sita Soren case, the court has said that if there's a bribery case, there is a corruption case, that cannot restrict the parliamentary privileges, that cannot restrict the enforcement agencies to go and carry forward their action just because the legislators have the parliamentary privileges. The idea being, why was it necessary to give parliamentary privileges? Because the functioning of the parliament or the state legislature is done in an impartial way. The normal functioning should not be hampered. But bribery and corruption has nothing to do with the functioning of the parliament, and the normal process of law should be followed. So this is how the parliamentary privileges and their conceptualization has evolved from Searchlight cases to Sita Soren case. So basically telling all these claims that I have parliamentary privilege, so I should be immune, is not immune from judicial review. So court can exercise judicial review and see what is the scope of parliamentary privileges. Again, there is in parliamentary privileges always talk about the codification of parliamentary privileges, which has not been done yet, and give example of Australia and New Zealand. Australia was done in 1987 and New Zealand in 2014. And another point you can mention always about committee of privileges. So you can give more tools to committee of privileges so that they carry forward their activities in a more non-partisanship way. So more power to committee of privileges as well. So this talks about the parliamentary privileges one. For this year especially, go well prepared with ethics committee and delimitation committee. Delimitation commission. You could have a 10 marker or a 15 marker on them, and delimitation, you have a lot of issues around that as well. So go prepared with that as well. There's another one, a contemporary one that we can discuss is the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, which is 106th Constitutional Amendment Act. So this basically talks about 33% representation, but you'll have to tell it as a polity answer, right? It's not a generalized society answer or anything. So you'll have to be thorough with what articles have been changed, what articles have to be has introduced. The first, it has amended Article 239A AA, which was for NCT already, which gave NCT its own legislature and all. In NCT, it has reserved 33% of for women. Then it has added few articles. One is easy to remember, 330A, 332A, and 334A. This talks about 1/3 in Lok Sabha, along with for SCs and STs, as mandated in Article 330. So Article 330 talks about the reservation for SCs and STs, and 330A talks about 1/3 reservation of women in Lok Sabha, including the reservation as given in the SC, ST. We also, there has to be 1/3 reservation as well, effectively. 332 talks about the same thing but in state legislature. And 334 talks about ki this would happen after delimitation is done post the first census after this bill. So it basically tells that after the first census, from now the first delimitation commission happens, after that this would be effective. And under that it has given two things, that there is a sunset clause for 15 years, and there is also talk about there has to be rotation of such seats every, like as per every delimitation. After every delimitation, this rotation will happen. So these are basically, from a constitutional point of view, what are the changes have been done through this Constitutional Amendment Act. We'll discuss about the need. Like make as, like, this is fairly simple. Why did we need it? Yes, but representation first. 14% is representation, global 22.4%. That's why. Second, global gender gap. Our rank is pretty bad, 127th out of 148 or 146. So to fill up that gap, there we didn't have. Third is key to have political role models, social mobility for women in political arena. Yes, women representation. We took more voice to women. Then we also give a perspective that having more women in public policy making and legislation, it makes our policies more gender sensitive. And then talk about ki already the base has been done in Panchayati Raj, and now it's important to give them a pedestal to give facilitating the women leaders of Panchayati Raj to take up the positions in legislature and Lok Sabha. And there's also one of the study by Esther Duflo, the Nobel laureate, who had got with Abhijit Ganguly. They had seen that when women are involved in developmental activities, in developmental projects, the overall development and the result is more pronounced as compared to the other case. So that's why women-led development is necessary, and give such reports and such, because she's a Nobel laureate, that adds up to the credibility as well. So these are the significance. We'll talk about the issues. What do you think are the issues with this bill? With this bill, like, seems very positive and was much needed. One more thing, also prepare separately the evolution of the demand for this, because this has been in demand, which was started as a private member bill way long back, and then it was taken during Congress government, and then now taken during BJP government, and then it passed as a bill. So that has its own evolution as well. So you can take that as well. So for example, like digressing a bit, for example, in essay, you had to mention an idea about growth or change or perseverance or dedication. Always can give a perspective of parliament where things like this keeps on going, and you'll have to persevere for something for a greater good, and it might take a lot of years, but you can have something fulfilled. So love this is exactly. But what are the issues for this bill? The first issue is like it's the date. Like it could have done now, right? But it has to be done after delimitation is done and completed. So this might take years for its implementation. So that's one of the criticism. The second one is, think about that. What would be the shortcomings when you are telling about, basically it's a reservation. So all those shortcomings of reservation could be given here. क्या? Yes. हाँ. हाँ. You can, but then this would be very stretched out point, because Mandal Commission was for education and employment, and this is for political. So might not be relevant. But thoda irrelevant hai. You have a lot of more points to have here. Exactly. So basically the Pati Panchayat concept. Here also the same thing, that the leadership could be just symbolic in nature. The third one is limits the choices of the voters. Now they will be bound to only vote from the women who would be standing up. So that is a limitation on their choice as well. The fourth point is women are very non-homogeneous as compared to castes. Caste, we have a lower back, like caste is also a dynamic spectrum, but women could be elite women, there could be women from different backgrounds. So women in general are very non-homogeneous. I mean, it's a perspective. I can always debate that no, women as a entire group is also disadvantaged, but also it's a perspective that says that women are a non-homogeneous group. People have their own privileges. So it cannot be compared similar to scheduled caste or scheduled tribes. So that is also one of the criticisms for that. Next point, there's no, for SCs and ST, there's a reservation, there's no reservation for OBCs or any religious minorities. So things like that is also one of the points, there's no mandate for OBC reservation for this as well. Another criticism is that the seat is, we had written here, the seat rotation happens after every delimitation and not after every general election. So the seat rotation would not happen every 5 years, but after every delimitation would happen, and that there's no fixed rule that when delimitation would happen, as we had seen in practice. Another one, very fundamental. Where does this happen? It happens in the lower houses, only in the state legislature and the Lok Sabha. It does not talk about Rajya Sabha or the Council of States. So both the 330A and 332A talks about only the lower houses and not the upper houses. So that's also one of the criticisms. Another criticism that I can recall now, anybody of sociology optional? So there's an article by Nivedita Menon. It could be far-fetched for a GS to answer, but for perspective, if somebody from sociology, one can relate. Nivedita Menon writes that basically what it do is that non-dominant caste men would now be taken by the dominant caste women. Basically saying that now elite women will be only taking the places. So earlier, let's say in a place where a disprivileged society male was taking up the position, now elite women will take a position of that. So in sociology, we have concepts of dominant and non-dominant castes. So where, yes, so yeah, by Srinivas, I had Srinivas concept, but this is an article that I had read by Nivedita Menon, with where she had given this perspective. So basically telling you can write ki it might support only the elite women and not women from disprivileged communities. Yep. So other themes are given. Go through them as fast as you can. Just like keep collecting the value addition material and analyze through those points. But we'll discuss one of the PYQs. Last year 2023, when I had attempted, we had a question. Discuss the role of presiding officers of state legislatures in maintaining order and impartiality in conducting legislative work and in facilitating best democratic practices. The very first thing is that it gives you three different things, and these and is basically not saying the same things. It's also asking about maintaining order, it's talking about impartiality, and also talking about best democratic practices. So you first of all, you can have a structure in these three different dimensions. The 10 marker, try to give 8, 9 points, try to. You can have 3 points each. So, like if we're talking about presiding officers, first of all, the articles, 93 is about speaker, the presiding officer. Same, I think, is for 94 is for the chairman of the Rajya Sabha Council of State as well. You can, with the article, you can say, and then you can say they have an immense role, constitutionally, they're mandated to ensure the democratic ideals to flourish. Any flowery language. Then you tell, like, write it, ki the role of presiding officers in maintaining order, and then write the points. So in maintaining order is by allocating, like the presiding officer is also the, what do you say, the chairman of these three committees, right? That looks about the rules, business, and general purpose committee. So with that also, she looks after the general well-being, the timetable and the functioning of the way, the allocation of the times and the entire schedule as well. So that is one. Second, in maintaining order, you can have things like she can suspend because of unruly behavior. Yes, anybody who is arbitrating the general procedure, she has or he has the right to suspend them as well. Take ideas from what you had read. Like maintaining order could be the parliamentary privileges exercise, right? That there can't be any arrest in the premises without his or her permission or consent. So that is also talking. Maintaining order is not just for the people, right? Or it is also the entire parliament. So you can extrapolate that point as well. So next, you have impartiality in conducting legislative work. First, anti-defection. Like anti-defection, like she has to. I'm not sure why I'm telling she here, but he has to. President Om Birla. So exactly. So yeah, that's the thing. The speaker has to be non-biased in terms of dealing with anti-defection cases. Solve it within the limited time frame and in a non-partisan way. The second way in which the non-partisanship could come is also, yes. So when the speaker is not eligible to, in terms of ties, not eligible to, like whenever there is a tie, he or she can vote, then her vote should be in a non-partisanship way. That is also one of the points. There's a third point is that when there's a classification of money bill. So we had controversies around money bill as well. So money bill is also one of the things which is attached to speaker. So give that point that has to be done in a non-partisanship as well. Then you have the best democratic practices. So the best democratic practices could be one, ensuring the quality of the debates to happen more and more. And second, opposition gets also ample amount of time. All these different devices of parliament, 0 hour, or questionnaire, etc., those to be followed, and ample amount of time should be given for any pertaining topic to be discussed. And then these are basically democratic practices. One thing you can also highlight about the presiding officer's roles in ensuring the committees, parliamentary committees are working fine. So when you're talking about maintaining order or in democratic practices, you can ensure ki encouragement of dialogues and inter-party consultation through parliamentary committees. So that's also one of the points in which democratic ideals could be fulfilled.
That's in democratic practice in India से around the world ये देख सकते हैं. Like India का तो कितने चार पॉइंट इसमें 2 पॉइंट यदि around global देखा है
जैसे
USA का एग्जांपल ले लेते हैं कुछ भी अच्छा.
हाँ तो one you can give your example in UK the speaker has to leave his or her party and then they can join. So that is also one of the best cases for non-partisanship. You can give an example here as well. And then you can end up with speaker. I don't recall any other value addition material. You can give court judgments, Kiloto Holohan case or Kyoto Holohan case or KM Singh Manipur case for speaker, where their action comes under judicial review and they have to follow the ethics of non-partisanship and be quick in effecting their responsibilities. So it's important to have qualitative content, but it's also important to have the quantity high. So always think for more dimensions in which, and you can always get a dimension for everything that you had read here. So you can have a dimension from political privileges, you can have a dimension from committees, you can have a dimension from speaker's role, from anti-defection, parliamentary sovereignty, the different devices of parliamentary proceedings. So think those in mind, and through those lens, try to analyze any question you are getting for parliament. And similarly for any topic that you are getting. So I think that's it. If you have any queries, then happy to take. But go through the other concepts that are left, but ethics committee and delimitation commission, make sure you and one suspension of MPs, go through these pretty in depth.
Parliamentary the article 1 जो union of state कहते हैं ना, like locally parliamentary sovereignty दिखाता over the state. मतलब कि you cannot मतलब आप बाहर नहीं कर सकते इंडिया से जो.
That is not parliamentary sovereignty is basically कि पार्लियामेंट जो लॉ बनाए उसको कोई रिफ्यूट नहीं कर सकता. इज पार्लियामेंट्री सोवरेनिटी. It's not union of states and India and Bharat. Nothing has to do with law making, right? It's about telling ki it's not basically Article 1 tells कि federation नहीं है. It's not out of any treaty or agreement as in US. Everybody is like all the states as a union of state and not a federation of state. It has nothing to do with parliament and making laws. So when I'm saying ki extrapolate points, do not go itna bhi irrelevant. You have to be relevant in terms of when it's saying. So extrapolation from various themes which are allied themes from that core topic, but not like kuch bhi kahin se. Like part 5 se hi socho. Part 5 is parliament or schedule 10 is anti-defection. From there, not like from citizenship se kuch la rahe ho. Agar kuch relevant hai to la rahe ho, but not like abhi pure article number 1 se last tak if you go on thinking, time ho jayega. So do not go itna far behind and overthink and brainstorm.